everybody, and welcome to my surprise review of Fatal Frame 2 Crimson Butterfly, because Koei was nice enough to give me a free review key. I got the game a couple of days before its release. I got it like at the start of the week, and it released like closer to the middle of the week. I want to make this review as honest as possible, so I want to put some things about myself out there. First of all, I never played any other Fatal Frame games. Secondly, I'm not the biggest fan of horror. I do play horror. I don't mind horror games, but I do kinda have heart issues. So there is like a tolerance level where if too spooky or too stressful, I'm just not gonna be playing at all. This game, thankfully, did not like cross over my thresholds, so... And also, I'm not like a super good game player. My biggest thing is that I am stubborn, and that's how I get through a lot of games. But on my first playthroughs, I will often make a lot of mistakes. You're seeing footage from a very early point in my playthrough. I have statted my own camera kind of wrong, so it is a lot more rough than it should actually be, but I really wanted to be honest about such things before we just dive straight into the review. Second part of this whole review, because yes, this is a multi-part process. After introducing myself, I should introduce to you the game. Fatal Frame 2 Crimson Butterfly is a survival horror game where you are playing a teenage girl that defends herself against the ghosties. Why are you fighting ghosties, you might ask? Well, the basic premise is this. You're playing in the forest, as you do, with your twin sister. Your twin sister gets slightly possessy and wanders off into a village where if you cross in, you cannot leave because it is a haunted, always nighttime village. You are trying to, at multiple times in this game, find your sister, protect your sister, figure out how to leave the you cannot leave ghosty village. That is the basic premise of the game. The first time through it, I played it on normal. It took me 19 hours to beat. It costs £44 or 52 if you're buying the deluxe edition with some extra cosmetics. Now welcome to the segment that's called Neither Good Nor Bad. It's just the kind of observations that I made. First thing that's kind of neither good neither bad, because it implies that the game is kind of mechanically complex and that there are choices that you can do with how you upgrade your camera and therefore how you upgrade your character and what you do with that camera. This game has a lot of mechanics. It throws quite a lot of mechanics at you from the very get-go. I felt very overwhelmed. In like the first few hours, the game explains how multiple filters work to you, how sneaking works, how combat works, how stat screen works, what are upgrade items, what are usable. I was super overwhelmed with everything at just the beginning because there is a lot. And I do mean like a lot. And that's not really a bad thing because by the time you're midway through the game, you're just gonna be juggling everything quite happily. But if you're new to this series, just like me, and you're starting here, there's quite a lot of learning that you have to do quite up front, and that can feel very overwhelming, I would say. So it's neither good nor bad. Now, the opening for this game is quite odd. It is about, as I explained, apparently it's kind of a narrative technique that's popular in Korea and Japan, where you kind of join midway through rather than get to know the character that you're playing. I thought maybe this game is a continuation of Fatal Frame 1, but no, apparently that one has entirely different characters, so you don't need to play Fatal Frame 1 to play Fatal Frame 2, but that makes the intro to Fatal Frame 2 even more confusing. Because it is exactly as what I said. You're just thrown into this moment where you and your sister are playing in a forest for reasons, and she just wanders off, and you're like, okay? And that's how the game begins. So I like knowing who I'm playing. I like knowing what my connections and what my family, the history is. Joining in like that is kind of weird. But at the same time, as it is a known narrative device in other countries, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just kinda unusual. And now, the last bit that's kinda neither good nor bad, you could say that it's a bit bad, but honestly, it's not that big of a deal. The game starts hammering the main topic about it to you pretty early on. So you can sort of figure out what is even happening in this game at maybe like chapter 2 or at latest chapter 3. And the other chapters are kind of just like a repetition of this theme. The game does like hide a couple of words when you're just starting out, and in order to like not give you any spoilers, I recorded this bit of footage really early on. So you will be reading a book and there will be like words hidden, and later on you will find a different book that will now have words highlighted because those words are now unhidden because you know what those words were. But when you were reading a book with the words hidden, you could 100% guess the correct meaning as to what is hidden. So as you progress further, it's not like, oh my god, so this is what was happening in the plot. It's like, yeah, I kind of figured out the plot in about the first 30 minutes. The rest of the game is kind of doubling down on it, which, once again, can work as a narrative. It's just a bit odd. Therefore, it goes into the section where things are neither good nor bad. So if that was neither good nor bad, you say, what is actually bad? There are parts of the game where the game requires you to run away and you absolutely cannot fight. If you try to defeat those enemies, you're gonna die, and there's like a lot of insta-death moments in those parts in particular. You kind of need to know where to run, or else you're just gonna repeatedly end up dead. And I have been insta-killed by doors, I have been insta-killed by checking the wrong doors, I have been insta-killed in a lot of very small sections where the game forces you to play only the way that the game wants you to play. It's honestly frustrating. If I was to replay this, I can do it better now because I know where to go, but when you're playing it the first time around, it's not a very fun mechanic to encounter. There is one fight at the end of the game that demands that you have full range upgraded. If you don't have that, you need to restart the segment and respec your camera, which is what I have done. It took me like 13 minutes to figure out that that's what I've been doing wrong, but it is kind of weird to enforce very specific stat requirements onto a specific part of the game. But like, respecing is a thing in this game, so it's not like you can't work around it. It's just, I'm not entirely sure that I appreciate that kind of thing. My third bad point is that saving has to be done at save points and not from a menu. Purchasing of healing items is supposed to also be done at the same save points, and if you touch them, you will restore your full health. It's doing this horror game thing where it builds tension, but it also means that if you unknowingly enter a part of the game where save files, save points are kind of not really available to you for a prolonged amount of time, you can't even like walk away from your single player game that you're playing because you would need to save for that, unless of course you want to restart from an autosave and lose some amount of progress. Most of the time, you're pretty close to a save point, and requiring save points for all of these functions kind of made me very defensively hover around a couple of them. So like you defeat some enemies, you go back and you touch the save point in order to heal yourself. I'm not the biggest fan of mechanics like this. I understand why they're there. I understand that you probably wouldn't want like unlimited saving from absolutely anywhere in your survival horror game because that takes away from it. But this is one of those mechanics that I once again don't really enjoy. So what about the good then? The game, at least for me, runs buttery smooth. I'm gonna be putting my specs on the screen right now, at the very least my CPU and GPU. Some people have complained about the game's performance. I'm playing with everything on high, but I kept myself to 60 FPS because I didn't want the game to dive below it or to have like variable frame rate. I will warn you, I tend to disable things like motion blur and I tend to disable film grain because games proc migraines for me fairly easily, so I tend to like crisp and smooth, sharp vision where I can clearly identify objects on screen. It's kind of the kind of thing that I need to do. Second point is I was entirely new to this game. I only got lost once, pretty badly. Now mind you, when I got lost that time, I managed to get lost for 2 hours. Because the area that the game that has been sending me to, I did not realize was even an area that existed, so I checked everywhere else first before looking up where I'm actually supposed to go. If you're experienced with this game, you're not gonna encounter this issue, obviously, but what I'm trying to say is that if during my 19 hours of play, I only failed to follow the game's instructions once and got miserably lost because I myself did not realize that an area exists because I haven't noticed it, that means that the game is written, the whole story, the whole environment is structured in a way that is kinda easy enough to follow for even people that are entirely new to this game in particular, so props for the game for good design. Mind you, small internet complaint that has been thrown is that the remake has a fairly comprehensive map and a mini-map. I will tell you this now, without it, I would have probably gotten lost a lot more, so I appreciate this point, even though some previous players of this game really hate this point. And my last really good point is the story overall. If you forget that it's hammering its exact theme at you for 8 chapters straight, not 8 hours, played it for 19, so more than 8 hours, the story overall is actually quite engaging when you get really into it. I was seeking out the side stories, I was doing a lot of reading, I was reading all the little books that I found, I was following ghosts around, I wanted to find out more, I wanted to understand more, and I cried at the final cinematic. It did make me sad. So while the story is it's a bit more horror gamey than an RPG story would be, by which I mean the conclusion isn't as satisfying as you would expect from an RPG game, And obviously the game doesn't start off as strong as like an RPG game where you get to know your environment. You're kind of just thrown into the whole thing. You don't really know your sister, you don't really know your character, you're just kind of thrown into it, and the end is... It's not all sunshine and rainbows. That would be the way that I could describe it without like giving you spoilers. Even though that's the case, I liked it. I found it engaging. I cried at the end. I would play again, and actually I will. So meet you on Mondays when I'm gonna be streaming this, when I'm not streaming Infinity Nikki, or when I'm not just really, really, really dead. And now, last part, before we get to the conclusion, it is common internet complaints. Outside of the fact that this game runs poorly, to which on my system it ran really well, and I did show you my specs, so, you know, kind of judge for yourself. If you have something similar, it will probably do okay. And outside of that odd complaint about this game has a mini map now. Now, mind you, the game ran fine, but my recording now is struggling to record my own recording. Excuse me, OBS? Anyway. Yeah, the game has a mini-map. That's not... To me, that's a good thing and not a bad thing. Outside of those two, common internet complaints are: the main character was given leggings. I put my main character into a traditional Japanese robe because I got that with the deluxe version. But, in general, the character is underage, an underage girl, so I don't quite mind that you're not here to like get upskirt shots on it. I understand the complaint, but at the same time, it wouldn't be the kind of game that I would be interested in playing, so, it is too easy to see in the new version of the game. This is what Chapter 7 looked on my screen. I did not find the game too easy to see in. And the last complaint was that the enemies are health sponges and that the combat feels prolonged. To which case I say I tried to fix the framing recording because this is pre-recorded footage. It looked fine playing through it, but Windows Media Player hates replaying the file for some reason while OBS is trying to record the file. So ignoring what's currently on screen, what I'm trying to say is you have to be very careful about how you stack your camera. If you want to deal good damage, the first thing that I suggest doing is upgrading focal points, not damage or how fast you reload your camera. Because focal points are the little dotties on the screen, and effectively you're dealing damage per dotty. So if you have more dotty, more damage happen. Secondly, really select your charm that goes with your build pretty well. I ended up, in the end, going for standard focal charm, but I saw that Radiant Filter actually goes up higher in damage dotties than the standard filter goes up in damage dotties, so I could have probably been dealing even more damage by the end of the game. The thing is, by the end of the game, I was killing regular monsters in about 3 frames. As in, I literally would photograph them 3 times and they would die. So, enemies appear to be health sponges at first, and I suggest just running past most of them. And enemies can appear to be health sponges if you dot yourself and your camera wrong and don't have a coherent build. So I think that that is what is happening with that complaint overall. So, what would be my overall evaluation of this game? I would give this game 8 out of 10. It could be better, it could be smoother, it could have easier to grasp combat mechanics, because that seems to be a common complaint. It could have more ways of playing and more, and there's always more that can be done, but it is fairly high up because I am fairly satisfied with it as it is. And in fact, I will be playing it once again the second time around. I'm gonna start a new game plus, and I'm just gonna stream it on this channel on Mondays when I'm not streaming Infinity Nikki and when I'm not completely dead because of my health. If I am, then you're just gonna get a Lara Croft upload instead of me streaming this. But yeah, I'm planning to go through it a second time because it is a fairly enjoyable game. £44 for 19 hours is not the worst when it comes to money to hours played ratio, even if you're not planning to replay it. I'm wondering what would happen if I fully upgraded the Radiant filter instead, and if I took a Radiant charm to go with it, can I improve my damage? I'm also wondering about all the stories that I didn't quite finish playing through to see all of that extra content, because there are side quests and there are side stories in it, and at points I was too scared to actually pursue them. There are still some collectibles that I haven't found, so second playthrough for me is kind of justified. Overall, it is a fine game. They did a good job. I like it. That would be my review. If you played through this yourself, please tell me your opinions in the description down below. You're also free to disagree with me at absolutely any point, so if you think I got something wrong, or if you think my opinion is incorrect, please correct me in the comment section down below, or just leave your opinion on this review, or on the game, or on anything of that sort. I love having conversations in my comment section, so thank you for watching this review. I hope I'm gonna see you on Mondays when I'm streaming this, and toodaloo for now.